Welcome, everyone, to the Aspen City Council regular meeting of August 11th. I will call the meeting to order and ask Nicole to call the roll, please.
Councillor Benedetti. Here. Councillor Doyle. Councillor Guth. Councillor Rose.
Here.
Bill is
Here.
online.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. Thank you for being online, Bill. We see you there. You're a panelist now.
Mayor Richards.
Here. Ready, Nicole?
Yep.
Okay. We will now move on to citizens' comments and petitions. We have no special public appearances scheduled for today. Simply raise your hand and come on up to the table and identify yourself for the record, and you have about 3 minutes. So good to see you here, John. I hope all's doing well.
You can hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I'm John Kelleher, a longtime member of St. Mary Parish. This past week, we were informed about the new to us details of the redevelopment of Connor Park, which include a stage that we built at the northeast corner of the property. We met with Rob Schroeder and John Doyle on Monday, August 3rd, and discussed our concerns, those being that amplified activities will occur at times when religious services, weddings, funerals, mass, and religious instruction, prayer, and meditation are taking place in our church and classrooms. Those activities had never been brought to our attention previously. We must also respect the historical residences adjacent to Connor Park and other residences in the immediate vicinity. The Connor family owned the property and sold it to Harold Shorty Pabst with the understanding that it would be donated to the city as the Milton G. Connor Park. We are 100% in favor of the redevelopment of the Armory as a food court and community gathering space. The Armory will be a great place to buy a reasonably priced meal and eat it with friends in the shaded park, enjoying the green grass and the chirping birds and trees. At present, the park provides a quiet respite from the hustle and bustle of our commercial core. I've done some research on what restrictions might have been placed on the park when it was created. An article in the June 16, 1983 edition of the Aspen Times Weekly states that the 2 2/3 vacant lots east of City Hall were designated in perpetuity as Milton Connor Memorial Park. Thus, a public park cannot be sold, leased for private non-park commercial purposes, or built over without a public charter amendment or voter approval. However, upon further research, information shows that the City Council and Historic Preservation Committee recently negotiated the necessary restrictions to allow minor park updates. The approved development plan is highly limited, quote, a small performance deck, a simplified green field, bike parking, and perforated seating around the historic evergreen tree, unquote. The performance deck is our greatest concern. With the exception of use for Saturday market, the park has largely been a passive use, as we see at Francis Whitaker, Hilliard, Glory Hole, Jenny Adair, and other parks that are not intended to host events. They are there for quiet enjoyment of the public. We very much appreciate your concern and review of the potential intrusion into St. Mary's peaceful activities. We want to work to further find common ground on outdoor uses of this treasured park honoring Milton Connor. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
I will give, I have some
Copies of that?
Here.
Okay. Yeah, please, for the record. And we do have the letter from the pastor and deacon, and we'll invite you to come up and speak in just 1 minute.
There, I think there's 6 there. Yeah. So that's great. Thank you very much.
Please. And again, just come up and identify yourself for the record in about 3 minutes.
My name is Deacon Phil Harrington. I am at St. Mary's Parish right across the street on Main Street, and I have a letter written by the Archdiocese of Denver, who is the landlord of the property, concerning the redevelopment of Connor Park. Mayor Richards, first, the Archdiocese of Denver would like to thank Jen Phelan and Councilman John Doyle for making themselves available to meet with representatives of St. Mary's Catholic Parish about the upcoming construction project at Armory Hall and Connor Park. While the Archdiocese and St. Mary's, as co-owners of the parish, are generally supportive of the project, we have particular concerns about the proposed use of the outdoor space. It is our understanding that an outdoor stage for the performance of live, amplified music is planned to be situated on the northeast corner of the park near our church building. We request that the City of Aspen reconsider its approval for Connor Park to be used for live or amplified music. Such uses would negatively impact the parish community who gather daily for Mass and would disturb those who use the church outside of Mass as a place for quiet prayer. The City of Aspen has a long history of carefully mitigating noise through reasonable ordinances aimed at preserving the serenity of the Rocky Mountains. We hope that the same careful consideration will be given to placing a music venue immediately adjacent to a church building whose defining feature is its function as a place of peace, sanctity, and reverence. We welcome the Armory Hall project as it reimagines the use of an iconic Aspen building while respecting its historic value. We believe that the intent of the project can be fully realized in a way that respects the quiet atmosphere that is so important to St. Mary's. We hope for continued dialogue in a spirit of mutual appreciation. In Christ, Patrick Brady, Executive Director of Real Estate and Construction, the Archdiocese of Denver.
Thank you for being here today. Thank you for the letter from the Archdiocese. And I think that the comment as it's closing is exactly where we are. We hope for continued dialogue in the spirit of mutual appreciation of your needs and your parishers' needs and our community's needs. I think we can work this through quite well. Please.
Hi, my name is Mary Wolf. I'm the business manager at St. Mary Catholic Parish in Aspen, and I was asked by Suzanne Caskey to read her statement, so I hope I do an okay job reading it, but
Okay.
I have a copy here for you when it follows. This is from Suzanne Caskey, one of our parishioners. In this community, we value history, the gifts left to us by others who came before us, whose paths we walk now. The city has gone to great lengths to honor St. Mary Church, and while we might have found the regulations applied to the church in the past cumbersome, for instance, not being allowed to add a second-floor emergency exit near the front of the church, near the alley, to be built a few years ago, we are appreciative of the preservation of our historic structure. Now we beg for that respect again. Intensity has become a threatening monster which plagues both the city and Pitkin County. We leave no space for a quiet bench to sit on, a place to simply sit and gather our thoughts, a place of simplicity in the side yard of historic cottages and within a stone's throw of a historic church, a place to listen for our better angels, a place in the shade to catch up with friends. We will have lost a precious and irreplaceable gift from those who were here before us. The old-fashioned gift and art of reconnecting with one another in a relative peace is worth honoring. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Suzanne Caskey.
Yeah,
with a C.
Francis, I'm just going to take a half a second to say I really appreciate, I know Suzanne Caskey forever and pretty much everyone in the room, appreciate these comments. I think, again, this is something that the very common goal of reconnecting the community is behind the Armory project. And we will work with you to make sure that all necessary arrangements are made to keep working this out. Okay? Thank you. Francis?
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you. We have a little bit of work to do with all that. And I appreciate Connor Park, too. Maybe we could do unplugged. Thank you, Aspen, Pitkin County Housing
name for the
Authority.
record.
Francis Stuckins. I live in Aspen. I've been here about 40 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, APCHA, for all the recertification checks and balances that they do. I'm requalified and still semi-retired, but that's temporary. Once again, I was glad to see you, Mayor Richards, at July 1st Climate Curve Awards presentation. Thank you for representing our community and the urgency of climate crisis that's happening. You're taking it seriously as our Aspen city government, not like the current administration back in D.C. And I'm here to proclaim this the year of the duck. It's a near rhyme, a metaphor. It's a double yoke now with what's going on. But once again, I'm grateful to the Aspen Daily News and for all the commentary that we get from Gruder, the Climate Corner with Jackie Francis, Maralt, Skinner. He was talking about food last week, and you know, from Philadelphia, I can see we need some cheesesteaks at the Armory. Sincere thanks to Aspen Community Voice, Peter Hodes doing a pro-science talk and dialing us in. There's a lot of politicalization of science that just doesn't fly these days. And again, that's connected to, we read the headlines.
Yeah.
I like The Guardian. Sincere thanks again. And last week, that.
Nobody's doing it.
Nobody's doing it, and they're speeding too. And, you know, I'm not the bicycle police, but.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. Is there additional public comment in the room? Please come forward.
Thank you. Linda Manning. Increase in voter turnout is 20%. I mean, the highest was 27% in 2017. So I think if the goal is to have the majority of the registered voters and community elect the elected officials, that doing that in just a general election is the way to go. If there's been some concern that, or questioning that the runoff has created, flips as to if a general election, the results have been different. But, you can only look at that through a certain lens that, if you would have had the same voter turnout or even more, you can only guess what the results would have been. But I think, from a community standpoint, the goal is to have the largest percentage of the population elect the elected officials, and that is clearly in November. The county averages 90% voter turnout in these November elections. So, and I also think that if the city was to stick with a runoff situation, if the county conducted the general election in November and it was up to the city clerk's office to conduct a runoff, there could be a scenario where you don't have a runoff for 2 years, and then all of a sudden it's 4 years later and they're trying to conduct a runoff when they haven't, done it. They're out of practice, the equipment is outdated, and, it's just, I think, produces a not ideal situation. I think the largest voter participation is what we should be looking for. I know, Sam, you had some concerns about, city issues being at the end of a ballot, but I think folks are resigned to long ballots with lots of questions, and, they'll vote regardless. So that was just, I just wanted to give you my input.
Yeah. Linda, we're going to have a second reading of that in 2 weeks. And
Yep.
so I would invite you to come back again. I just want to go, for you and the public, part of the logic is that we could have as many as 10 or 12 people running for 2 seats. And when I ran for mayor before, we had, in 1999, before we had a runoff, there were 4 people running, and I prevailed in a plurality election with 35% of the vote. It was very difficult, and most of the community said, but most of the people didn't support you. And when you have a split election like that with 8 or 10, which we've seen before, running for 2 council seats, you could have people elected without a majority support of the electorate because they're getting only 25 or 30 or 22% of the vote. And so we have discussed if the county would not do a runoff for us, we do need to keep the election equipment in case there's ever a special election by a citizen initiative for a ballot question or something like that. And so we will have current equipment. We're going to be keeping that up. The other opportunity would have been to say, well, should city council start having primaries in June for a November election? And I think that there was a discussion that may be appropriate for a county job, which pays as a full-time job, but I don't know that campaigning from March to primary to November is appropriate for a city council. So there are trade-offs. There clearly are trade-offs, and we'll have a discussion at the table on November about runoff or no runoff. I know Bill had said he'd prefer no runoff and just winner take all, whoever that might be.
Yeah, and I wanted to comment this week, so you had 2 weeks to digest my comments. Exactly.
Well, I gave you a little bit of an exception because you're a former clerk, but we normally
that.
don't take comments on things on the agenda.
Well, it's not a public hearing.
But it's not public hearing. So
yeah.
there you go.
Awesome.
Thank you very
appreciate
much. And it looks like you're enjoying summer. It's
Thank
good to
you.
see you. Okay, is there any other public comment in the room or public comment from any of the people online? I am not seeing any. I will close the public comment section of the meeting, and we will move on to special orders of the day, which are council members and mayor's comments. I should announce that John Doyle is taking his daughter to college. That's why he's not here today. I think it's the first regular meeting he's missed ever. And Bill Guth is online. So he is attending again from the road. Christine, do you have any council member comments today?
I don't. Thank you.
Okay.
We're here to listen for all of that. And lastly, I wanted to just remind everybody that we're still doing the traffic jams at the Wheeler Opera House through this week yet. It's on.
You know, the Wildfire Foundation is doing very important work throughout our valley. I was proud to be able to make them the beneficiary this year when there were no mental health organizations really able with the capacity to step up and manage that. So I'd like to thank all the sponsors who made it so successful, all the teams. They sold out all 24 teams who came to play. And in particular, I'd like to thank Jacob Anderson of the Aspen Fire District and Emily Taylor. Emily Taylor is their new director of the Wildfire Foundation, and she just took this bull by the horns and made it happen. And I think a really good, fun time was had by all. And the greens were in pretty good shape considering the weather. So those are my comments today, to just thank people. We look forward to doing it again next year, and we're not out of the woods yet for making sure you have your go bag ready, that you have really hardened your home as much as possible, cleaned the gutters, limbed the trees, and call the roll, Nicole.
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes, thank you. We will now move on to the first reading of ordinances. As Linda Manning kind of introduced for us, we're going to have a discussion about moving the elections to November. This will be going to a public vote. It will be up to the public to decide would they like to eliminate the March election and move the city elections over to November. It is Ordinance 17, Series of 2026, and I will just let you guys set up and take it away.
For a brief background, City has formally considered moving election to November on two prior occasions, one in 1971, the other in 1989. It failed in 71, passed in 89, but that adoption was repealed in 1990. Most recent efforts began in 2025, and the city staff prepared a white paper to analyze the concept of using the county's coordinated election in November of even years as the city's general election. This white paper was attached to the memo for this meeting, as well as the memo for the work session. But we do wish to make some additional comments about its conclusions in a moment. But first, I'd like to ask if there are any questions regarding ranked choice voting, which I discussed in the memo for this meeting. I had briefly mentioned ranked choice voting at the work session. There seemed to be some interest, but not sufficient support to bring back an ordinance to put it before the voters at this time. Nonetheless, I have a couple of additional comments. First, is that Colorado has officially adopted legislation regarding ranked choice voting. It requires a county to process municipalities' ranked choice election in a November coordinated election. However, although ranked choice voting has gained some more acceptance since the city used it in 2009, we called it instant runoff voting. I did not mention the fact that 13 states have specifically banned its use in local elections. Thus, for what it's worth, it still has controversy. Nonetheless, if you wish to discuss it further, I'm happy to do so. If there's no discussion on ranked choice voting, I have two questions for the council to move on at this time. The first is, does the council wish to present a ballot to the voters to propose a change of the election from its current status in March to a November general election that's coordinated with the county? That's question number one.
Okay, let me ask Bill, you're online, you heard the first question. Do you want to move the general election to November via a ballot question to the public?
Yes.
Okay, council members?
Yes.
You can say whatever you feel, like, you know.
I'm happy to discuss any aspect of this question, but this is a fundamental question to move forward, is do you want to present this to the electorate for that in November?
I am, like I said last meeting, I have reservations about this, but I'm willing to move it forward, given some of the feedback we've heard from the public and the community survey on it, and let the public decide. Those are my feelings.
And Pete, I think John got in touch with you on some of these.
He did, and Councilmember Doyle did support moving it to a November date.
Okay, and I support at least asking the question.
Yeah. And this is the first step for that, because obviously it has to come back second reading.
Correct.
Too.
And so minds can be changed at second reading if more things become apparent or anything like that.
So the second question, wait a minute. Do you wish to include a runoff election in December? This is what Ms. Manning was discussing, is the question of that runoff in December. And we do have some, I know Nicole has some additional comments for that, but I actually thought of a comment while I was sitting over there reading my memo, and I used the memo of the election of Alec Guinness to the council in a four-way election, which was 1,000 votes evenly split, relatively evenly split, like someone on a basically with 25% the support of the community. Council has a weird process in the runoffs that this could actually happen, not quite at those numbers, but the plurality in the runoff is different. If 4 people get into a runoff for the council seats, the top 2 vote getters win. And if it's so evenly split, you end up with a similar situation, even with the runoff system. The math's a little different, but it's still, because you have 2 votes for everybody, the math's different, but it still results in a plurality, does not have that majority election. I did not get into that, but it is a factor that could happen. And all of these minority votes, such as yours in 1999, with a plurality system can happen. But I just did note that when you have the runoff, you send 2 people to a runoff for mayor, so you've got to have a majority. But with council, you can send 4 people into the runoff.
That's my question. Do you need to send 4? Could it be top 3 to a certain point?
Our current system is 4 under certain circumstances where nobody's getting enough to move forward. I suppose you could do a system that has less, but
If you're gonna do that.
it's a little harder.
I agree with what you're pointing out, that there could be some very closely elected people, or you have a runoff with 4 and one receives most of the votes and the other 3 trail behind and have a lower number.
That's the most likely scenario.
But I don't think we saw that so much this last time. But what I was going to say is that, at least those people would be serving with some larger percent of support than if you had a 10-person no runoff.
Yeah.
4 people get elected with 22%, and the rest of the community is like, what? This is the one thing for me that I will say is I've worried about a November election because of the crowded ballot, because there's a lot of issues at one time, because it's harder to get advertising space, you may be caught up with the junk mail. And so local issues don't necessarily get examined as carefully as you'd like. But during a runoff, there's a lot more time to drill in. And even when you go to a candidate debate and you have 10 candidates running for 2 seats, those people are lucky to get 10 minutes of time to talk about any of their given positions in between the questions. So for me, a runoff is really a chance to drill down for what people's positions are that you might not have really been able to discover or discern clearly during a November crowded ballot. So, I mean, I'm just saying where I'm at on the questions that you're raising. I would like to include a runoff.
And we understand. I do know that Nicole wishes to make some comments about the runoffs also, similar to some of which Ms. Manning made a few minutes ago. But I know she wants to make some additional comments about the runoffs and how it works.
Yep, I just really wanted to remind you guys of what was in the white paper, which were kind of our points to coordinate with the county in the first place, which if you do choose to go with the runoff option, it doesn't lessen the financial burden, you know, as far as keeping the equipment. You know, we'd still have to have everything up to date, and then administratively, we'd have to prepare for a runoff regardless if it happened or not. So we'd have to have the room set up, ready to go. You know, so from an administrative and financial burden for the city, that would still be there. And then just lastly, I think you should also think about the fact that if the county runs the regular election and then we do have a runoff, I think it just causes a lot of confusion because you're changing location of ballot drop-off where the election's occurring, you know, county versus city. And then when the county is running their election, people have the opportunity to sign up for ballot tracks to track their ballots. We don't have that here. So there's just so many differences that I think it would create some confusion for the public, naturally. But those were just kind of my thoughts to consider.
So I appreciate that. You know, this isn't easy, and elections are demanding work. I appreciate that. I thought that at least moving it to November rather than keeping it over Christmas would be a benefit to the clerk's office in that way. I mean, honestly, we put in a 45% standard for council members, knowing there were multiple seats and there could be multiple candidates. Yes. We didn't make that a 50% standard, but maybe that's what we should do to make sure there's no minority elected or majority elected. But to eliminate the runoff and then just have no standard for, you know, you could be elected with 28% of the vote, that just doesn't feel right in our society.
Well, my plurality example in there with the election of Alec Guinness is exactly the issue you are addressing for a mayor's seat, for instance. You are electing Alec Guinness over Julie Christie by 2 votes with 25.4% of the vote. 74.6%, I believe, did not vote for Mr. Guinness.
Right.
And I do hope everybody got the Dr. Zhivago reference. It was very intended, but, but in any event, you know, that's exactly what you're arguing, and that is exactly the issue with plurality. It has to be weighed with the realities of the voting and the realities of what we've seen and what we could see, whether that overrides the difficulty with having a county do an election and then the city do the runoff. Those are issues that you have to decide. Now, if you don't wish to decide those at this moment, I would recommend that you read both alternative ordinances. You pass both alternative ordinances at this meeting and make a decision either to put both of them on the ballot in November or put one or the other. Right. And you do have an alternative under the charter. Put both of them on. If both of them receive a majority vote, the one with the most yes votes prevails. That is an alternative.
Thank you.
It's a runoff.
Not quite. It's a, yeah.
All right. Are there questions for Jim?
I've got more.
Oh, you got more. Keep going then.
There's
Okay,
another
sorry, I thought
2
you
more
were
frames.
stopping there with us.
There's, in either alternatives, runoffs or not, there's a question of whether you want to have the mayor election. Let me rephrase that. When you make the transition, all elected positions have some transition that results in a shorter term. And I described it with words in the memo, but we've got a graph that John Barker put together for us that shows this very clearly. And the question for you really is more, should the mayor have a shorter term initially and a longer term, the 2-year term, starting in January of 2029. So in April of 2027, a mayor would be sworn in. His or her term would end in January 2029, and then the next mayor elected in November 2029 would start in January 2029. Or the mayor could have a full 2-year term starting in April 2027 and ending in April 2029, and then a shorter term thereafter for the person elected November 2028. The advantage of that is that you're going to swear in a new council and a new mayor in April of 2029 versus having the mayor sworn in January 2029 and a new council sworn in April of 2029. And that's because the council that was elected in 2025 is entitled to serve until April 2029.
Their full term.
And there's nothing I would not suggest, and I don't think it's proper try to do a charter amendment that would cut a term short for somebody that is always elected. I do not think that's proper. I think that's the conclusion we've had. So the people elected in 2025 are going to serve until April 2029. So to have the swearing in of the mayor, you and John, have the swearing in of the mayor at the same time seems to make sense. Now, both of these ordinances are written with the longer term for the mayor in 2027. They can be changed easily, but that's the way it.
Well, it's not, I'm sorry, is it really longer or is it just a full term?
Full term.
Yeah, it's not longer.
Yeah, it's not longer. You're right. And that's important because theoretically you could have it longer, but we're trying to keep 2-year terms, 4-year terms, and have them transition
up.
as soon as possible.
Yeah. Did you have, this was related to a question. So you want to go back to the question page or you guys want this up?
Question
Or
is-
repeat the question? How about that?
Question is, do you want an initial non-2-year term or do you want an initial 2-year term? And again, the difference is,
My husband wanted the shorter term. Tell you that much. I'm going to wait and hear what others have to say on this. Bill, do you have a thing you want to weigh in on? Everyone up here is holding back.
I'm probably agnostic on this, but I guess I would go with the initial short term.
I think I would support the initial short term too. I understand trying to line up the new council and new mayor together, but I think that leaves too long of a gap in between, and also moving the shorter term to a term out is sort of awkward.
sorry, I did fail to mention that doing the longer the 2-year term for the mayors and from April 2027 to April 2029 does have a long gap between the election in November 28 and the swearing in 2029. Can't be helped for the council members that are elected in November 28, but it can for the mayor who is elected in 2027. So the term is 2 years short, 3 months
So
short.
you would be, whoever would be mayor in April 2027 would be. Yeah, thank you. Would be serving a 15-month term, and the last half of that term, the new candidates would already be running while they're serving, because they're running for a November election. I'm just trying to think how the governance really works when whoever's in this seat has two candidates with them for public comment every meeting, or election season's always known as silly season or crazy season with staff because it's so hard to get anything done to begin with.
It's very true, but that's going to happen under any circumstance.
Okay.
And the term is 21 months, not 15. It goes from April 2027 to January 2029. If my math's right, it's 3 months short.
That's right.
And which makes it 21 months. But you're going to have, either way, you're going to have an election in November 2028 for a council and a council that won't be sworn in until April 2029. And if you have the full two-year term for the mayor, it would be the same for mayor. An election in 2028, not to take office until 2029. It's a head scratcher.
Jody?
I think my answer to that one is, because I'm trying to wrap my head around it respectfully, is the mayor's term in this upcoming election should line up so that the mayor and 2 council members in the following April
After the election, yeah.
after the election line up so that they're all sworn in at the same time.
So which one is that?
Thanks,
That's
you,
option
Rachel. Yeah.
Option 2
That's
up
option
there.
So, so whoever would be elected mayor in
April.
November of '28 would have a shorter term.
Correct.
But they would be sworn in at the exact same time as the 2 council members elected with them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the other option, it would be offset, and I think that's very strange.
To reset a council working arrangement and
With a-
relationships and.
With a different mayor for 3 months, just
3
to have them potentially fall off. So I do think it needs to be synced up. So yeah, that's,
So you're going with option 2?
I think for the reason that it just needs to be synced up. Yeah, having a mayor drop off potentially in that January and having the 2 council members stay on through April is strange. And I don't think good for the council or the municipality and city.
I'll go with that logic.
To be frank, that
It's
was.
strange no matter what. I kind of want to say an overall comment, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christine, as far as like what you said before at the work session, that even though there are some citizens that have asked for this, it's not really citizen-led, and it leaves us to make a lot of decisions that weren't necessarily in the community survey. So the community told us they wanted November elections, and that's why I say, okay, let's vote on that. But all these questions above, as Bill kind of said the word, leave me a little agnostic about it, especially someone who wasn't enthusiastic to start about this, and make it incredibly difficult to want to put something on the ballot in November. I mean, we're sussing through it now, so I get that, but we're sussing through it without community input, and it's a little uncomfortable because I do want the community to weigh in on some of these more nuanced questions, and if they say they're agnostic, so be it. I'm not sure if it's going to change the program, but anyway, on this question,
Well, we can put both questions on. That way, the public would be the ones choosing those 2 options.
I did not write, and frankly would not suggest that, because that is way too confusing, I think.
Okay.
The alternative ballot issue, the alternative ordinances are just about runoff. I do think people can understand that distinction. Both of the ordinances that are in the packet have this initial 2-year term written in. I just thought
Okay,
council
okay.
needed to weigh in on it, and you can amend, but
Confirm it.
yeah.
Okay.
You can certainly amend it. But that was, when we've talked about this internally, that was kind of how, at least I thought. that-
Well, and then just the final thought for now is just Nicole's comments about having to keep the election system and the runoff is like, to be honest with you, Rachel, I very much believe what you're saying as far as the runoff. That is so logical. But then I also hear what Nicole's saying. It's like two things are right at the same time. And it leaves me not necessarily agnostic, but also like scratching my head being like,
I can understand this, but
Yeah.
I just want to bring us back
Yep.
for a moment to the
Yep.
current situation, is that people have just finished the November election, you barely have the results certified, and you're out there whenever the petitions are available and turning them in over Christmas week and filing additional paperwork to run for a March election. You know, that's the current situation, and you're out there and asking people to vote in the cold and the snow, and it's been consistently, what was the statistic, 15% lower turnout than in a March election than in a November election of City of Aspen voters. And so those are what I see as the compelling reasons to at least give the public a choice to move this. And, you know, we do a lot of things, and I hate to even have to put it this way, but a lot of what we decide at council becomes work for staff, becomes heavy staff work, you know, whether it's Ben out in ComDev and we're asking him to look at new codes, or whether it's new programs, you know, in any department, we do create work. I'll be the first to say that, but I think not having more work in our clerk's office, I say this with all respect, but in order to maintain the March election is not the right logic to me. It's the right logic is to move it when most voters will be participating and having a runoff. But I understand the challenge. Pete, did you?
I was just going to say, I think right now on my tally, we have 2 for option 1 and 2 for option 2. So I think there's still maybe a decision that has to be made about which direction to go. I do think that I actually hear your logic, Sam. I think that's something to consider as a council. I do also agree with Jim, like the nuances of this is so far in the weeds that voters probably would not understand that. And if you don't know who the candidates are, you know, that helps to kind of pull back and say, how important is it in terms of which one takes the shorter term potentially? So if that helps, I mean,
Or when it's taken.
Yes, exactly. So hopefully we don't get, you know, high-sided on it. I do think that you heard from the public that voters tend to prefer the November option at this point, and as much as staff would love a little reprieve, we'll work with it. We'll figure it out.
I'm happy to move to option 2 if that helps make the decision. Like I said, I'm somewhat agnostic, and I understand the rationale on both sides.
Okay. Thanks, Bill, for jumping in. Did John give you any thoughts on, well, this one question? He said he wanted to move it to November, but he didn't get the final
that's the
follow-up
easy
question.
answer.
That's
The rest is
easy
the hard part.
That's correct.
Well, I think you're at this point, if you move forward with ordinance 17, and you want to move both of them, the runoff and no runoff, that's certainly up to you. But at this point, you need to decide whether you want to read these ordinances, one or more of them, and whether you want to move one or more of them forward, runoff or no runoff. Both of the ones in the packet have the two-year term initially, which it sounds like we've got the majority to do,
Well,
right?
Yeah,
One
please.
option before you, I note that Councilmember Rose rightfully pointed out, you haven't heard anything from the public on any of these options. You could move both of them to second reading and have public hearings on both options before then choosing to pass either both or just one. And so that's another option before you, because I will note, we haven't noticed these as public hearing because they are only on first reading. I don't know if that matters to you, but I thought I'd point that out, that even if you move it to second, doesn't mean you have to pass them at second.
Correct.
That plus kind of doing some outreach and encouraging some participation, even in 2 weeks, would mean something to me. To be like, here are the questions that were asked of council, it moved to second reading. Does anyone have an opinion? Please let council know.
And we can see what we can do on that. I just would, again, caution that I think when the shorter term is taken is probably not a question that is going to make a lot of sense to the general public.
I'm not talking
Asking
about this as much as runoff versus.
The runoff
yeah.
is an easier question to certainly pose, if that's what your concern is
Okay.
and you want to.
So both of these in our packet are versions that have option 2,
Correct,
and one option has no runoff and the other option has a runoff.
correct.
And I just, before we go there, is there majority support for no runoff? I mean, Bill expressed no runoff before. I think he's probably still in that position. Do you feel?
I am.
Yeah, okay. And you just expressed that a runoff is important for really serving with a support.
Well,
of
no,
the
I
public.
totally get that. Again, I would say, in the kindest way, like, I didn't bring this issue forward, so it's gotten me thinking.
Right.
And I'm like perplexed about like ranked choice voting. And I don't think there's a perfect system in this sense, because I get answers on all sides as far as like what doesn't make sense versus what does. You know, it's like interesting, I hope this goes somewhere, but like the California governor's primary, there was like a chance it was going to be in a very blue state, 2 Republicans. It didn't end up working out that way, but there's always, in these elections, it becomes gaming the system. And like ranked choice voting makes me nervous that way as well, but I do think there's a lot to be said about having the most palatable candidate elected in that way. So I'm, in these next 2 weeks, I kind of want to listen more about ranked choice voting, even though I didn't ask earlier about it, because it's just got me thinking, versus a runoff and what makes sense between those two. But I would say, Rachel, I agree with you in the sense that I don't want to see people elected in the first round with like 20% of the vote. I don't think that does this community a service. So it would be
Just
between those
at a
two.
technical level, because this is first reading and it has to be set coming up soon, we probably wouldn't be able to shift it over to a ranked choice voting thing in second reading unless it was part of first reading. So I'm thinking we could examine it further, but there's not really that opportunity.
I would strongly recommend that if you want to consider ranked choice voting, you put this off until the March election, because it is more complicated than just saying we will adopt ranked choice voting. We have to really set forth kind of a program for how that's going to be done. And we weren't prepared to try to do that here. And, you know, it can be done and can be adopted, but not just for the comment you made that we're not here at first reading with the ranked choice voting program. If you were interested in that,
It would take a lot more detail.
It
There'd be a
takes
lot
more
more questions than just on this chart.
No, that's what I mean. But yeah, at least for tonight, if it's between runoff or no runoff, I think a runoff is sadly needed, as much as I don't really love it, just for the reason of not having that 20% elected vote.
It's important. Okay, I support having a runoff. Bill does not support having a runoff. We don't know from John. How do you feel about a runoff?
I would like to see both move forward to second reading so that they are part of the public discussion on this and that we keep talking about both options.
Okay,
That seems fair.
And just point of clarification, Councilmember Doyle did support a December runoff.
oh, he did.
He did include that in his comments.
Okay, so that gets awkward. We have a majority position in support of bringing it forward with a runoff for second reading.
there's not a lot of downside to doing both at this point. They're written, they're published, they're before council.
Okay, that's quite true. So given that, the question would be, is there a motion for first reading of ordinance 17, alternative 1, and alternative 17, alternative 2? Is how we do those readings?
That's how that's how I've written them in
Unless
the
you want
packet.
to make them a different number on the second one.
A motion to read them?
I think you could do a motion to read both collectively. You don't.
But she's asking about, should
Should one of them be ordinance
17.
18 versus, and both of them be known as ordinance 17 here?
I don't think it matters
I
myself.
don't think it matters either.
Okay, that's
you-
fine. So I will again ask, is there a motion to read both ordinances 17?
Yes, I'll make a motion to read both versions, alternatives of ordinance 17.
Okay.
And I'll second and ask, were you done with your slides, Jim?
Yeah, that's all the slides I
Okay,
have.
yeah, second, yeah. I was curious.
Yeah, I kind of thought it brought it to an end. But
Sorry. Yeah.
okay,
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
yes.
Ordinance number 17, series of 2026, alternative number 1, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aspen, Colorado, amending the city charter of the City of Aspen by amending sections 2.2, 2.7, 3.2, 3.3, and 4.1 to move the city general election from March to November of even-numbered years commencing November 2028 to be conducted as a coordinated election with Pitkin County, Colorado. And then ordinance number 17, series of 2026, alternative 2, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aspen, Colorado, amending the city charter of the City of Aspen by amending sections 2.2, 2.7, 3.2, 3.3, and 4.1 to move the city general election from March to November of even-numbered years commencing November 2028 to be conducted as a coordinated election with Pitkin County, Colorado, and removing the runoff system.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to move both ordinances 17, alternate 1 and alternate 2, on to second reading?
So moved.
So moved.
Oh, seconded.
Which is essentially approved on first reading. Okay, it's been moved by
Bill.
Bill, seconded by Sam. Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you very much. That is that item. We will move into our public hearings in just a moment. We're going to take a very short restroom break and be back. Welcome back to the Aspen City Council meeting of August 11th. We are about to go into our public hearings, and the first item is ordinance number 14, series of 2026, the Construction and Demolition Debris Diversion Code updates. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Elizabeth Richardson. I'm the Construction Debris Coordinator with Engineering, and with me I have
Aaron Reed, I am the Plans and Construction Supervisor.
A little closer to you.
Haley. Okay, so I'm presenting for second reading ordinance number 14, series of 2026. We had our first reading on July 14th, and this ordinance is, focusing on code amendments to the construction and demolition debris diversion program, with recommending the removal of the diversion compliance deposit, as well as exempting roof replacement projects from this chapter, and the rest of the program will stay the same. We had some questions from council at the end of the first reading, so I wanted to answer these with these following slides. So the first question was, how does the city's program differ from the county's? First of all, the city program is based on the county program. We rely on the Pitkin County Solid Waste Center and what they can divert. And on top of this, the county's program, we added a few differences to have more enforcement tools. So the first difference is that we set the threshold higher to require this program, to apply this program for projects greater than 2,000 square feet. We have no difference in the requirements of the recovery and diversion of 100% recyclable materials. The city charges an unsorted load fee of $495 per ton. That's based on the social cost of carbon, and we can issue a stop work order in projects that are not in compliance, which the county can't enforce. And the city also requires on-site inspections throughout the different phases of a project. The follow-up question was, are there good reasons for these differences, and where should our program align to reduce confusion? For the applicability, the reason is to focus on major projects with higher debris output and to reduce staff time during permit review. For the unsorted load fee, we based ours on the social cost of carbon, which the county didn't. And staff shares the same goals with the county. So we both want to divert what is recyclable. And since we're two different jurisdictions, our permit application is just different. And that's, I think, where the biggest differences are. So at this point, staff is not recommending a one-to-one alignment with the county. For the next question, why can't we recycle cedar shake roof shingles? These materials are often contaminated, either stained, chemically treated, or painted. And the Pitkin County Solid Waste Center really wants to keep their lumber pile clean so they can incorporate that wood in their wood chips program or in the composting program. So they're not allowed in the clean wood pile. They have to go to the landfill. And the final question was about where do our C&D materials go? And I love talking about it because that's always the question that comes up with the contractors as well. So untreated lumber can have different end markets. You can deconstruct it and use it in your project or bring it to a different yard and use it in future projects. Or you can bring it to the Pitkin County Solid Waste Center. They shred it into wood chips, and that's classified recycling. Any nails or metal is not an issue for them. Their shredder has a magnet and can pull it out. For metal, you can deconstruct steel beams and use them in a different project, but you can also recycle them with a scrap metal recycling facility. And appliances find different homes. Sometimes staff on site takes it home if they need a new dishwasher or a fridge. And if staff on site doesn't need it, then they either work with Restore in Glenwood Springs or the Motherlode Mercantile at the Pitkin County Solid Waste Center. And if the appliance is not in a good condition, it can be recycled at the Pitkin County Solid Waste Center as well. With porcelain and concrete, you can reuse porcelain, for example, bathtubs or toilets. If they're not in good condition or we don't find another home for them, they can be added to the concrete pile and crushed into road base. Concrete also can be crushed on site and used as backfill. And same with asphalt and rock and dirt. They can either be crushed and used at the Pitkin County Solid Waste Center and sold again, or used on site for different landscaping. And then we have cardboard. Some haulers reuse their cardboard during deliveries and take it back for future deliveries, but often it just joins the recycling stream. It's shipped to the Front Range where it's baled and further shipped to recycle and end markets that add it to new paper products. Our organics program is amazing at the Pitkin County Solid Waste Center. You can add your food scraps, landscaping material, and we create local compost, which helps our soil. And then with single stream recyclables, they are hauled to the Front Range and further shipped for recycling. So those are the materials that are required to be diverted and their end markets. And those were all the questions I received. And staff is recommending the approval of ordinance number 14, series of 2026, and I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Council members, any additional questions on this ordinance? Personally, I think it's great work that you guys were able to review and decide, hey, we don't need to collect these deposits, it's unnecessary, and that you're looking at other things that are unnecessary or not to be required, such as the roof shingles. And so I appreciate that. Bill, do you have any comments online?
No, just thank you for explaining the differences and your reasoning behind it. All makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public here to speak to this item? I will open the public hearing. There being none, I will close the public hearing, bring it back to the council table for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 14, series of 2026.
Okay.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you very much. The next item is fairly straightforward. Ordinance number 15, series of 2026, establishing term limits for the Wheeler Advisory Board.
I can.
You're presenting for this, Kate?
I can present, correct. I don't have a formal presentation for you. As you mentioned, this is fairly straightforward. At first reading, I believe it was Councilmember Rose suggested that we amend these slightly to include an additional limitation on term limits that states that if you've served for 9 consecutive years, at reappointment, you would only be eligible to serve 1 additional term. I have made that change to both this ordinance 15, sorry. This is the one establishing term limits for the Wheeler Board. It is included as an additional subsection to Section 2 of the establishing ordinance. And it reads that any member who, as of the effective date of this ordinance, has already served 9 or more consecutive years on the board shall be eligible for reappointment to no more than 1 additional term. A Upon completion of such additional term, the member shall be ineligible for reappointment unless the member has been separated from the board for service for at least 3 years. I would note that in the event you do not have an qualified member, you can appoint regardless of the term limits for a term of no more than 3 years. You can also shorten that term if they've met the term limit, if they've met the number of years of the limitation. So I think it's fairly straightforward. Certainly, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Just to be clear, it is also written so that if for any reason council was delayed in making a new appointment, that person would continue to serve until an appointment is made? Or is that just kind of standard operating procedure?
That's how we've operated in the past.
Does it need to be in the ordinance, or is, again, if it's accepted practice, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to not end up with a board without a quorum because council hadn't met or there hadn't been any candidates or something.
Yes, so I do think that your clerk's office is very good at tracking these things and bringing people back to you for reappointment. If it does come to our attention, I think historically we've allowed them to serve or brought them right back to you when we recognize that
Right.
there's been an oversight in
Okay.
the expiration date. So I think that would continue to happen. I don't necessarily know that we can certainly continue this, and I can add an additional term to the ordinance.
No, I want
I don't know
to,
that it's happened that you, and I will say, when you look at the board and the members of the board, and Megan is online right now, and I do think there was a mistake on the next ordinance about who's currently serving on that board, but they're staggered.
Okay.
And so it's rare that you would, I think, find yourself in the scenario where you don't have enough board members to constitute a quorum.
okay, perfect. Thank you. This is also a public hearing. Did anyone else have questions at the table? No, okay. We will open up the public hearing on ordinance number 15, series of 2026, establishing term limits for the Wheeler Advisory Board. Is there anyone online who would care to comment? And there is no one in the room. I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the table. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 15, series of 2026?
So
So
moved.
moved.
I'm going to give it to Bill, to Sam. Bill can be the second. Sam was the one who brought, at least, both of you guys did. Both of you guys brought them up, one for the Wheeler, one for the Kids First. I think it was a good idea. Okay, so the mate's been made and seconded. Would you call the roll, please, Nicole?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes, thank you very much. We will now move on to ordinance number 16, series of 2026, establishing term limits for the Kids First Advisory Board. And you were saying there's some detail work in the ordinance you need to clarify?
One correction in the memo, and I know Megan is online, and she may be able to speak to this more fully than I can, but I think VI.A is listed currently as the board chair, and my understanding is she is no longer serving on the board.
Okay.
So that's just a typographical error in the memo. I don't think it modifies or changes the request before you, which is to approve the ordinance, which would establish term limits. And in the case of the Kids First Board, the bylaws called for an automatic reappointment of any member that indicated a desire to serve. The ordinance as amended would require all reappointments to come back to you. So there would no longer be this automatic renewal. It was not expressly stated in the ordinance such that the bylaws were clearly in conflict when they developed those bylaws. So this adds some clarity to that issue.
Okay, thank you for that. And so the typo was in the memo, the ordinance is written just fine.
And it contains the same provision that I mentioned with respect to ordinance 15 about the limit on any member who served 9 consecutive years or more. At reappointment, they would only be eligible for one additional term unless you made findings that there was no qualified members to serve, and then you would have the option to reappoint that member despite the term limit.
Okay, that's very good flexibility you built in for us. This is a public hearing as well. Is there anyone here in the public to comment on the Kids First term limit ordinance? And I do not see anyone. I do not see anyone online. Is there, I will close the public hearing and see, is there a motion on this ordinance?
So moved.
Okay, to approve.
Second.
Okay. All right, it has been moved and seconded. Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes, thank you. We will now move into our action item section of the agenda. This is a Resolution 102, Series of 2026, the request for a demolition allotment for 82 Northway Drive. And it's my understanding in the staff report, you're recommending approval of this demolition permit. Okay, thank you. This is not a public hearing, it's an action item, so just let us know what you guys have on deck. There we go.
Good evening, Mayor Richards, City Council. For the record, Brianna Dalbin, planner with Community Development. This is resolution number 102, series of 2026, for the consideration of a demolition allotment at 82 Northway Drive. Staff is recommending council grant a 2027 demolition allotment. I did want to note that if council wishes to do so, this would leave one regular demolition allotment and one longtime local allotment available for the year of 2027. So this would be the 5th regular allotment that would be granted. The applicant's representative, Chris, is present today, and I know that he mentioned he wanted to make a brief comment.
Okay.
I also have a further presentation if y'all wanted me to go into more detail about this demolition for the property and the process of demolition allotments.
Council, do we feel kind of informed by the memo and the presentation, or do you want more presentation?
I just have some minor comments, not as contentious, hopefully, just comments.
Okay, well, we'll hold on.
Yes.
And Chris, you wanted to make some comments to the board on this?
I was pleasantly surprised that the staff recommended approval. It's the first time.
Sorry about that. Chris.
How about that?
Much better.
Usually
Really projecting
I usually
now.
don't get told to talk louder. I was pleasantly surprised with the staff recommendation in the memo. I've been in front of this council many times on these demolition allotment appeals, and I believe that this is the appropriate action. I continue to have some reservations about the policy that undergirds the limits. I think that was passed during the moratorium, and there have since been developments that would alleviate the need for these strict limitations that would incur a lot of cost for applicants, hiring a land planner, going through the process of applying, usually hiring a lawyer, teeing this up as if it might become a Rule 106 lawsuit, which fortunately hasn't happened except in one occasion, which easily got, dispensed with. So I continue to make the point that I hope at some point the council in its infinite wisdom will revisit this allotment program. I think 6 allotments a year are obviously not enough because you keep having to borrow from future years. And that might be the first indication that you set the bar too low, your ceiling. I don't believe there should be a ceiling in any event. I continue to not be able to find any other municipalities that set caps on demolition allotments. And the ones that even had some allotments have rescinded those. And that's in the memo that I submitted as part of my notice of appeal. Nevertheless, I don't need to go back into the history of this. I think you're all well educated on it. I've talked about it before. It's in the papers. I will gladly recommend that you take your staff's approval, recommendation of approval, and grant my client the demolition allotment. I am happy to talk about any site-specific aspects of this particular property. I tried to get into that on the application itself that I submitted, and as well as the notice of appeal. This, I do believe, is an example of how the waste diversion program and looking at a site-specific property condition does show that if the city is really serious about reducing CO2 emissions, is really serious about promoting green building codes, demolition is sometimes better than renovating a property that's going to cause more and therefore take away any net benefits from not demolishing. I think in this instance, this is a really good example, and perhaps that's why the staff recommended granting my appeal. With that, I will not gild the lily, and hopefully you'll do what your staff recommends.
Thank you for that, Chris. This is not a public hearing. It is an action item. I think we've all read the report. We've heard your comments. Did staff have anything further they wanted to add? I would then say I am ready to accept a motion, and then we can make comments after the motion, perhaps?
Sure.
Okay.
Find out what number.
I move to approve resolution number 102, series of 2026.
Seconded.
Second. Okay, there has been a motion made and seconded. We will now have council discussion. Do you want to go first,
Don't
Sam?
mind,
Yeah, and then we'll call on you, Bill, and we'll go around the table.
These are just things that I noticed from this one that
Okay.
wasn't sure if staff or Chris wanted to comment on, but just a couple things I noticed. It seems like this home was built in 1988, so relatively old. And it says on the Pitkin County Assessor website that the roof is cedar shake. So obviously one of those ones that you don't love for wildfire. But then curiosity on this one as well. It says it's 3,640 square feet, yet on Zillow, this address is listed for $35 million, 6-bed, 9-bath, 7,193 square feet. It says 82 Northway Drive, and it shows like this rendering of a new build, which I thought was just a curiosity, and that's why I bring it up. It says new construction. I don't know if it's a different address or what, but it seems to show as something that was recently built. So I thought that was just a weird thing
Weird
I
thing,
wanted to
yeah.
bring up and see what the deal was.
A couple of things on that. One, I can't vouch for Zillow, and I
Okay.
don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
That surprises me because that's not the situation at all, if you want to go take a look at it. And I'm sure Kate will remind you that because you're sitting quasi-judicially, you have to confine yourself to the record in front of you.
Fair enough. Did my own.
Yeah. That, we just had the refresher course on that, too.
Thanks, Chris. Got it. All right. Strange. Anyway, strange.
You know, I was under the impression, Chris, that if someone brought forward the knowledge that they had, that they concerned them or had questions about, the act of bringing it forward kept it from being a issue. Yeah, I mean, on the record, was that more if it's an appeal of an existing decision?
That's the issue. So right now, this is brought to you as an appeal
an
of
appeal.
the determination to deny based on insufficient allotments. So it's a unique scenario. You don't see this very often except
It's
for in
an
this.
appeal under an action item.
It's an appeal. So generally
confusing.
speaking, appeals, you're looking at the record and sort of determining if ComDev made the right decision when it decided to deny it based on insufficient allotments. But I will say, the way this is written, unlike an appeal, where you just sort of decide, did they make the right decision or, based on what the evidence they had, you get to do a variety of things here. You can grant an additional allotment. That can be either, as staff is recommending, a multi-year taken from a future year, or you can add to the available allotments for this year. So it's unique, but I agree with Mr. Bryan's assessment that procedurally, my recommendation is you stick to the application and the memo before you. I have said what you said before, but I don't think that because this is an appeal, that really can be taken into consideration. I will say that to the extent this information can be relevant, it might be in future analysis on this topic.
That staff
I think that's
includes.
been, that staff can take into account when it's deciding what to, or can take into account when deciding how to modify or change this program if you so desire in the future.
Okay, thank you for that.
Always learning.
Did you have any other questions or
No,
comments?
just curiosities.
Bill, do you have any comments before we take the vote?
Excuse me, I do not.
Okay. Christine? No, I don't. Okay, Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Oh, I'm sorry, I hit mute again. Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Is that everyone?
That's everything.
There we go.
Oh,
You got it, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for not gilding the lily too much. I think that is pretty much the end of our meeting. I'd like to thank Grassroots TV, and one more thank you to the golf staff for that wonderful
make a motion
tournament.
to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
It has been made and seconded. Will you call the roll, Nicole?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Bill, thank you for making the effort to be able to Zoom in. Really appreciate it. I know it's not easy in the summer. We all have family and travel plans, so thank you.
Yep, thanks.